Like a ratchet wrench, you don't retrogress. In this episode, we are going to address the question, what does it mean to lock in your gains and reset? This episode is number 8 in a series of 21 in a group that is titled Secrets to a Tax-Free Retirement. I would implore you that you watch all of these, take 4 or 5 hours, get empowered to be able to have an extra $1 million that will generate $100,000 a year of tax-free income into perpetuity when you retire. I'm Doug Andrew, and I've been doing this for more than 45 years. Doing what? Helping people optimize their assets and minimize taxes and empower them to be able to have $1 million generate $100,000 a year of tax-free income during their retirement years and never outlive their money. My favorite vehicle for accomplishing that goal is a maximum funded, tax-advantaged, indexed universal life insurance contract that is structured correctly and funded properly. It's what I affectionately call the LASER fund. LASER is an acronym that stands for Liquid Assets, Safely Earning Returns. And so in this episode, I'm going to show you how to lock in your gains and reset every year. And I compare it metaphorically to a ratchet wrench. So let me show you a simple example. First of all, many people have their money invested in the market, especially in traditional IRAs and 401ks. And so what happens in a 10-year period, and this is actually a period from 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, the market went up for 4 years. Then what happened in 2008? It dropped 40% and then it came back up again. It took about 10 years for that to occur. So $100,000 in the market may climb, but then when the market corrects or crashes, you go down and all of a sudden it's only worth $152,000 at this point, and then it rebounds and comes up to $238,000. Not bad with your money in the market, right? You had 100 grand, 10 years later you have 238,000. What could be better? It's called indexing, where you don't lose when the market goes down. So over here in series 2, it's tax-free because it's a maximum funded universal life insurance contract. During the same time period, you participate in the upside in the market, maybe not even as much as being actually at risk in the market, but you participate. But when the market goes down, you don't lose, okay? And Will Rogers once said people get more concerned about the return of their money instead of the return on their money. I mean, Warren Buffett said there's 2 rules of investing. Rule number 1, don't lose money. And rule number 2 is don't forget rule number 1. With indexed universal life, your money is not in the market. If you viewed the episodes where I explained that, your money is safely tucked in an insurance company earning the general account portfolio rate, let's say of 5%. Whenever you link to the index of your choice, you're simply telling the insurance company, don't put my million at risk, keep my principal safe, but the interest you are earning this year on my million, I'm relinquishing that, and they take that interest, 5% on $1 million, let's say, would be $50,000 that they buy upside options. If the market crashes, you may not make much of anything at all. Maybe 0 is your hero. Maybe you make 1% as a floor, but you didn't lose. So here you maintain $189,000 instead of dropping down to $152,000. And then as soon as the market takes off again, you start participating again. And at the end of this 10-year period, this is an actual 10-year period in one of the worst periods since the Great Depression, you would have ended up with $269,000 tax-free, not losing during that downturn. Here, even though we gave it the benefit and came back up again, this is only worth $238, because when you experience a loss, let's say of 33%, a 33% loss has to be followed by a 50% gain to get back to break even. A 50% loss, $1 million going down to 500,000, 500,000 has to have a 100% increase to make up for a 50% loss. So let's talk about how to lock in your gains and reset. So this is like a ratchet wrench in that if you've ever used one and you're tightening a nut, and then when you reset, it goes click, 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 you don't unwind the progress you made. In other words, you don't retrogress. Because if you had a regular open-end wrench and you went like this and like this, you're not going anywhere. You're going tight, loose, tight, loose. With a ratchet wrench, you're only tightening. You're only gaining progress. You're going tight and then click, 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 click. You don't lose the tightness that you created. So that's why I compare it to a ratchet wrench. So let's say you have $100,000. So the $100,000 increases 10%. So now you have $110,000. With an indexed universal life insurance policy, that $10,000 you made becomes newly protected principal. Next year, the market loses 10%. If you had your money in the market, the $110,000 loses 10%, okay? You're down to $99,000 because 10% of 110 is $11,000. So in the market, you're down here to $99,000. With an indexed universal life, you may have a floor of, let's say, 1% or even 0. So you don't lose, or if you made 1%, your 110 grows to 111. You locked in this gain here and you reset. The next year, you only made 1%, maybe 0, but you didn't lose 10%. Let's say the market rebounds again 5%. This account is up to 103,000. This account, you get 5% on the 111 because you locked in these gains and you reset here and here. And so 5% on top of that is 116. In just 3 years, the market going up 10, okay, down 10 and up 5, you're ahead of the game, 116,000 versus 103,950. What's that difference? $12,705 more dollars on this simple example. So let me show you how lock-in and resetting the gains works over a 10-year period, because that's more realistic. So let's look at the actual S&P 500 during a very, very poor period, the worst decade since the Great Depression. This is from 1999 February to April of 2009. Probably the worst 10 years you could pick since the Great Depression. So what happened to the S&P is it was at 1241, it went up to 1366, and then what happened? 9/11, and it went down to 1239, 1106, okay, and 841. Lost. 3 years. Most Americans, it took 4 years till 2007 to make back the loss. It went back up. They were finally back to a little bit higher than the 100 grand or the million they had when they started. And then what happened in 2008? The market began to drop in 2007, 2008, and went clear down here to 735, and then barely came back in 2009. Do you know during that same time period, we made a ton of money? Not as much as in really good times, but let me show you the difference, because we locked in our gains and we reset every time we had a gain, but when the market went down, we did not lose. Watch the power behind this. With my money in an indexed universal life insurance contract, my money is not in the market, okay? It is safely tucked in the insurance company, earning either the general account portfolio yield, and I am satisfied with that, or I can link to an index. So let's assume that I had $100,000 in an indexed universal life policy versus in the market during this 10-year period. So what happens is I experienced a gain just like money in the market would, but when the market dropped down those 3 years to 2003, I would have earned 0, 0, 0. That would have been my hero. Now, frankly, I would not have sat there and just earned 0. I've recorded additional episodes where I rebalance. When you rebalance, that means that I just say, you know what? I think we're going to be in a recession for a little while. And so instead of earning 0 for 3 years in a row, maybe this year and this year, I'll just settle for the 5%. And that's called rebalancing. But let's look at worst case. Let's say you just left it there and you earned zip, 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 but you didn't lose. The market starts to turn around and you pick up from this point, not this point. Because I locked in every single year, even though I didn't make anything, I didn't lose. Then the market goes up and I got 15%, 5.12, 6.4, okay, 9.85, and I came up to 2008, just like people who had money in the market. Then what happened in 2008? The market goes down. 2007 to 2008, 40% drop. No, I didn't lose. I locked in my gains that I made during these years from 2003 to 2007, and I simply earned zero for 2 years. Now, in actuality, I didn't. I only earned zero one of those years. The other year, I rebalanced and said, okay, until the market turns around, I'm just going to take the general account portfolio rate of 5. So instead of having 5 years of zero, by rebalancing, I only had 2 years of zero. The other 3 years, I earned at least 5%. So it's way better than this even looks. I wanted to show you the power that if you had your money in an indexed universal life and you earned zero for 5 of those 10 years, your 100 grand would have been worth $178,000 at the end of that worst 10-year period since the Great Depression, tax-free, versus money in the market, it barely came back to $68,000. In other words, your 100 grand was still not back to break even. It took until 2012 for this to come back up and be worth $100,000. People with their money in an indexed universal life easily had doubled their money. Most tripled their money because they rebalanced every year by, hey, just pay me 5% until this market turns around, and then link again. The key is it is locking in the gains and resetting like a ratchet wrench. You're going tighten, tighten, make money, and then click, 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 click. I'm not losing money. I'm not making it, but I'm not retrogressing. And then all of a sudden, let's just ratchet this thing up and make a lot of money. But then when the market goes down, you just reset like a ratchet. Click, 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 wait around for the market to turn around and goes back up again. But when it's click, click, clicking, you don't have to settle for zero. You can go back over and earn the general account portfolio rate in any given year at the end of that linking period. So the point is, instead of having 5 years of zero, which still I came out way ahead, I only had to have 2 years of zero by rebalancing with a licensed professional. So what about more recently? In the year 2017, many of our clients locked in gains of 16%. Some locked in gains of 25%. So if the next year, which happened to be sort of flat, but if it would have lost 40%, they would not have given up or lost the 16% or the 25% they made the year before. Every year you lock in and reset, and the gain you made becomes newly protected principal. That's what I call safety of principal. If you want to learn more about this strategy, this is why we've written a very powerful book. It's our 11th book. It's called The Laser Fund. It has 300 pages containing charts, graphs, explanations, and also 62 actual client stories. I want you to claim your free copy of this book. If you go to laserfund.com, I'll pay for the book. You pay $5.95 shipping and handling, and I'll fire out a copy for you. You can become empowered. But I want you also to finish this free mini course by watching this next episode so that you can learn more and more about how the Laser Fund can benefit you for all kinds of financial goals.